Just waiting for people to join. Making my hair while I wait for people to join. There is a person. Hey, Dan, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good.
Just realized I don't have my headphones. I'll be right back.
Hey, Andy, how's it going, man?
That's bad, Amir. How are you?
Good, good.
Just the two of us so far.
Dan's here. He's getting his headphones.
Oh, okay, okay. So how did you enjoy working in Europe?
It was nice. It was nice. It was, I would wake up in the morning, work for about 4 hours, and then my wife and I would go casually sightsee. And
that's all right.
And then I would work again for a few more hours in the evening. And the thing is, we were over there for almost 2.5 months, so we didn't have to like pack it in or anything, which was nice. And it was just a good, quote unquote, code retreat I was able to go on. A much needed code retreat. So that was it was good to be able to do that. And then hopefully Ruby Kaigi is going to be at the end of April, so I'll probably end up staying in Tokyo for a month. So that would be nice. So I'll do another mini code retreat to Tokyo and work from there. But yeah, it was good. I think the biggest thing I missed was my ergonomic setup. Like I didn't realize how much I relied on just like a good chair and good viewing angle. The dual monitors didn't even bother me. It was just like sitting at the kitchen table it hurt a lot. And I was like, I miss having a good chair to sit in and, you know, actually like comfortable. So that was the biggest like aha moment. That and a good bed. I think that was another thing, was that a good chair and a good bed were two things that I didn't realize were that important to me, but apparently they are. Everything else was just, I have my laptop, I'm good. How about y'all? How was your holidays and everything?
Well, I was home for my holidays, so that's nice. I'm back in North America now. Yes, which is nice. It's a lot colder where I am than I was, but you know, there's other things that make up for it. Like my own bed.
Yeah, it really is crazy. It's like yeah, bed is very surprising.
Well, where I was, I mean, it was, you know, most of those things were comfortable, but there was other things that you know, it's like, it's, you know,
it's holiday. It's holiday family.
I can eat bacon again.
Oh man. There's no food in Iceland, by the way. You're saying, Dan?
Oh, I went out to the Oregon coast for Christmas and stayed at like one of the Forest Service like cabins, and it's basically just a pad. I mean, it's like an actual bed, but it's just a pad, and it's screwed up my shoulder. It's been like 2 weeks now. My shoulder's still messed up, just from like 2 days on that pad. It's awful.
It is really amazing, to say the least, I guess. Speaking of bacon, Iceland has nothing. Like there was no food in Iceland. We did like a layover. So if you ever do a connection,
everything, just about everything comes by boat, right? I mean,
they import everything. The only thing they can grow there, I think, from one of the like tour people was like they have fish, and they have broccoli, which they grow in greenhouses. And everything else is imported. So we decided to do like a week layover just to explore Iceland. And we were starving. We were starving. There's no food there. We ended up getting Subway 2 footlongs, cost $35. 2 Subway footlongs, and we're like, this is not real food. This is not a real Subway sub sandwich, and you know that's a low bar in itself. But very, very expensive over there. Definitely no bacon. Very little bacon over there. That's for sure. All right, I guess we can get started. And Andrew couldn't make it, but you know we're recording and stuff, so hopefully they'll be able to catch up after the fact. Any things from y'all?
Not for me. Getting back into the swing of working from home here and catching up with some things. But so, you know, tried to stay in touch while I was away. I mean, following up with things, but I wasn't able to make any of these calls or anything. But Lori's stuff, you know, with the newsletter and the school opening, that's all.
The newsletter kicked off.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So
that's definitely good to see. It's cool. She does a good job of keeping track of, I guess, happenings in the Slack channel, and then at least giving the highlights and communicating that out.
Oh yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're in the Slack channel all the time, and I'm, you know, stay up to date with it, but she manages to always capture something that's of good interest, you know, to highlight it and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think that is fantastic to have in there. So that's good. And generally, if I see things in the Slack that need following up or questions that have been asked a number of times, I make sure to at least create an issue of it to keep a catalog of that information. So, but I think this is good, just interesting factoids and whatnot with regards to like seeing things in passing. So yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff for sure. Do you have anything on your end, Dan? Any
not really. The holidays kind of slowed down my job search.
Okay. So you're looking for work, contract work or full time, or
if it involves RubyMotion, I'm a lot more flexible.
Okay.
I'm mostly looking for.
No, that's good to know because I mean, like, I have startups that I work with to help deploy their applications and whatnot, and of course they're centered around RubyMotion. So awesome. That's good to know. A part of the whole RubyMotion thing is to have this network of people, and that's why I tell people to post to the Hello World community forum so that we know that, you know, here's a quick list of 50 people that have posted here and are interested. Yep. So it's good to know, and I will definitely forward any referrals on to you.
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, besides RubyMotion, I've been looking for Ruby and Rails work.
Okay.
Mostly back end. That's my experience.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I'll definitely keep that. I'm assuming remote would be perfect. Relocating to Dallas, Texas is not on your high list of things to do, I'm assuming.
No, Portland is pretty settled here.
It's a tiny bit better. Just a tiny bit better. No, that makes sense. So yeah, we had a big holiday break. Quite a few things to, I guess, cover. High level, we have a Chris McKnight. He's, you know, in and out of the community, but, you know, generally like a longtime RubyMotion user. He created a sample application for doing Sprite Kit on the Apple Watch. So that's going to, he gave me the sample up, and I just need to review it, and then I'll create the reference implementation from that. And it'll just be nice. It'll be nice to see like a sprite kit on the Apple Watch. The cool thing there is that it gets all the it's novel, which is novel, but it also gets all the complications and all the unique aspects of the watch itself kind of get out of the way, and it just lets you have a render loop that you can do something with. So an immediate thing was that when I saw a lot of the Twitter feed buzz about like creating your own watch faces, that was a motivator to say, hey, what if you took SpriteKit and you had this render loop that lets you create an arbitrary set of watch faces without really committing to learning any of the UI aspects of the watch itself. So you should see that sample app come out soonish. Aside from that, yeah, one of the startups
that app will be in with the other samples, Amir.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll put it there, and if it can, I need to do an audit of the existing watch template that's out there right now, and basically just do a delta between the Series 4 additions that have been added and what the watch template currently does. It looks like right now, and see if I can kind of flesh that out a little bit better. And then update that template, and then yes, have the watch template uploaded also, just as a separate repository.
Is that something that you have time for, or is that something that you know, you're going to create some stuff and like create some issues that you need some people to help with for the template stuff? Template stuff is in the open source stuff, right?
Yeah, for the templates, for the template stuff, I think like the nitty gritty auditing I'm going to have to do specifically around the compilation for the new chip architectures that are out there. So there's like an ARM 64W. There's a new backend thing. So I want to make sure the build configuration ensures that Series 4 compilation occurs. As far as like the WatchKit sample app, yeah, I don't want to by default put that inside of the template, but it might be nice to have like a separate template that shows SpriteKit and maybe give options to play around with the faces. But yeah, I'll defer that to the community and just put pointers out there saying like this is a reference implementation if you want to play around. But yeah, the nitty gritty, I'll definitely have to handle that. So that's in the work. I have we're just wrapped up I guess a stewardship with with the startup. They are releasing a RubyMotion app. I guess this February. I'm gonna have a kind of like I hate to call it a testimonial, but just a for lack of a better term, a white paper, right? With regards to what you know, what their app is about, how they implemented it, and what were the key components they used. But in essence, it was a responsive Rails app that was wrapped in a web view. And the next step is to add the seamless login and incorporate that with Devise, and then all the telemetry and isolated storage stuff. So it's that idea of how do you take a Rails app or just a responsive website, get to market quickly with a wrapped app, and then slowly make parts of that app native based on metrics that you collect on engagement and all that stuff. So the next step is the seamless login plus the push notification. So these people can get notified of some of the fundraisers that they're contributing to. And it's like it's a academia-based centric fundraising application in essence. So for charitable organizations is the vague description of the app. But that wrapped up not long ago, and then hopefully they'll have a release in February for that. Aside from that, the biggest thing would be I'm still waiting for Xcode 10.2 to drop. When that occurs, that's when the next release of RubyMotion will be in lockstep with that release of Xcode. There's a few a few small bugs around which some frameworks that should be automatically included on Mac OS. Those have been fixed. It's just a matter of getting those out. It's related to CF time and that C structure and its precompiled version. So it should automatically include some of the frameworks that depend on that. But RubyMotion, that part of RubyMotion wasn't in there, so that's been fixed. The Apple Watch architectures for Series 4, that is needs to be audited and make sure everything's in essence good over there with regards to compilation of that. And I think those are the two primary things with regards to like pending. The stack trace truncation issue has been fixed, so that's going to go out with the release. And the SIMD vector type for the third property of the SIMD vector type. So the vector type is a structure that has X, Y, and Z. So there's vector 3, vector 4, and vector 2. So vector 3, one of the values wasn't being hydrating correctly. So what would happen is that you would do, specifically with ARKit, you would do a transform, taking a 2D plane and then doing the vector 3 transform to kind of give it a 2.5D, and the Z-axis wasn't hydrating correctly there. So that also has been resolved. So those are the primary pending bug fixes that will be in lockstep with the next release. People haven't specifically come across these specific bugs, which is why no kind of like emergency release has been done or anything like that. So those are going to happen, and the next series of work that's going to start will be Xcode build. The old version of Xcode build has been deprecated with regards to how they do the build process. So those build definitions and those new things will have to be updated. So there'll be the additional switch added as a stopgap for now, and then work will be done to get that new build process in place. So that's kind of what will go out when Xcode 10.2 drops, and I expect that to happen probably pretty soon. Beta 3 just came out of iOS 12.1, I think. 12.1 or 12.2, but beta 3 just dropped. So it's close. I don't know how many betas they usually do. It's volatile. I can't say that every 3 betas they do something, but they are actively working the betas, and we're past the holiday season, so it's coming. I haven't heard anything specific about Marzipan, and whether that ability for developers to really flesh out applications on Marzipan has happened yet. I expect that to probably happen after their VR announcements. So they have a VR development kit, yet another VR external eGPU that will be VR ready. So right now it says coming soon, and that's all it says. So the container that eGPU will be it's the NVIDIA. They're all workstation quality video cards. It's the NVIDIA WX 7100, 8100, and 9100. So those are the 3 cards. It's basically the Vega 64 gig, but enterprisey, I guess. It does a better job of keeping computation accuracy for many more iterations as far as floating point calculations. So those are coming out. I think the low end is going to be $699, and the high end is going to be the video card alone. The 9100 video card alone is $1,600. So the high end eGPU is going to be expensive, I imagine. So I think they're going to do that VR stuff first, and then we'll see subsequent updates around Marzipan and this cross-platform iOS Marzipan thing that is coming up, or where you share where iOS and Mac OS share the same control suite. Have you all heard anything with regards to Marzipan, or any comments around either one of those things?
The only thing that I read was, I mean, I've seen lots of speculation.
Yep.
But the thing that I read, I can't remember, it might have been Marco Arment, said that, you know, Marzipan, or the code name Marzipan, might have been the project to port the apps just to see what sort of they looked like. And so the apps that were ported were just early kind of test bed stuff.
Proof of concept.
The actual framework isn't actually called Marzipan, but
okay.
You know, but I don't know that how that impacts us. And I don't know if you have people that actually know something. If you talk to people that actually know something, I suppose either you or they could be shot for actually putting.
Yeah. Usually they do a good job about saying, hinting at things that are redacted, but yeah, nothing like that has happened.
Yeah.
There are no little birds that have told me anything as of this point. With regards to Android, the everything below API 26 is going to go away soon. They no longer require any app updates that go to the Play Store now to have a target of API 26. Your minimum target can be whatever, but you have to be able to target API 26. So that is now a requirement that that target is there somewhere. So I expect, I don't know when they're going to say anything below 26 is kaputs.
What is 26? Is that
28 is the latest one, which is, oh gosh, what is it, Oreo?
Yeah.
Ice cream sandwich J K. No, we're on element O. We're on Oreo right now, right?
Oreo.
What's P? Yeah, we're not at P yet, are we?
Yeah, I thought it was released in October.
P. Anyways, it's 2 versions before Oreo.
Okay.
Ice cream L
M.
nougat, yeah. NOLMM. Marshmallow.
Yeah.
Marshmallow or nougat. That's it's definitely an ice cream sandwich, which is the current ridiculousness.
Ice cream sandwich is like what, 6 years old or something like that.
Yeah, they still support down to 19 at this point. So
well, yeah, it's because they have all these phones and systems running it, right? So
yeah,
I mean, you can buy new systems today that are only running Jello.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do there with regards. I mean, they said they've at least indicated that the intent is 26 being the lowest Android support.
Support 26, right?
Yeah, 26 and up is what, a lot of that pushes because I think if I may be wrong on this, but I think 26 is the first introduction to 64-bit. So they're in essence deprecating all 32-bit compilations and devices. So API 26 was the first. Devices that can support API 26 are 64-bit devices, from what I understand. So that's going to happen at some point eventually. So there's that on the Android side. I think that's the most recent occurrence that I'm aware of, and that requirement was set in place around in November. I think November 1 was when that hit the market. So that brings us to November. So in December was the Mojave. They went live with Mojave. There were segfault issues, specifically with System Ruby, in conjunction with bridge support, which was a thing. So this again will go out. This changelog, it's kind of in draft format. I want to share it with you all, obviously, to get your general feedback around it. Let me bring up the draft. Introducing user status on GitHub. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Just at github.com. We want to look at, where is my changelog? Okay. No, that's not it. There it is. So this is the intent for this is to communicate. I'll go ahead and put it inside of the Meetup Slack. I'll put draft in there. So if you bring it up, this is again for RubyMotion 5.17. So the first thing is the primary bug fix around metadata from framework dependencies generated targeting latest Mac OS SDKs. So like I said, there was some oversights with regards to autoloading those dependencies. The second bullet item is the long one, in essence. So this bullet item, again, I'm putting this under the umbrella of Dragon Ruby, being that when you see that tag, it means this is an open source thing that is maintained by RubyMotion, but it is in your best interest to also understand this stuff because it's a thing that could influence. Well, it's part of the RubyMotion open source ecosystem. One thing, and two, it may expand and leak into other aspects of Mac OS outside of RubyMotion. So with regards to, so that's under the umbrella of Dragon Ruby. And as more and more things start open sourcing, the organization, the Dragon Ruby organization, will in essence own these repos, and it will be moved away from my own local Amir Rajan username on GitHub. But so this actually details out what all was used to troubleshoot the seg faults that were happening with System Ruby in the context of Mojave. So just high level, I'm still doing like a kind of like a audit of this, specifically around, I want people to be able to actually try these steps to see the exception and kind of wrap their head around what foreign function interfaces look like in Ruby, how do you debug them, and just kind of spread the knowledge with regards to this. Intermixed with this repeatable steps, I go on my soapbox with regards to sustainable open source, which is why it's still a draft. And I'd want your feedback if I'm too on the nose with it, or if it's a good balance between this was the problem, this is how it was fixed, versus, oh, by the way, you should really learn how to do that. You should be, if you're a senior Ruby developer, regardless of RubyMotion or not, you should be knowledgeable in how to debug foreign function interface issues like this one. And I don't know where I landed on that spectrum, but high level, what in essence happens is you do a compilation of bridge support in the foreign function interface, and then you use a low level. You use some CLI tools, in this case DYLD, to determine where it's specifically looking for these libraries to exist. It also gives you it gives you some visibility into what environment variables and debug flags you can potentially pass to these processes to figure out how to solve a specific seg fault that happens at a lower straight C level. And around line 56, you'll see something called RB_define_method. This is consistent across many of the runtimes. So RubyMotion has this method signature. MRI Ruby has this method signature. JRuby, Rubinius. A lot of them try to stay contractually consistent with some of these C methods. So RB_define method is one of those specific methods. So DL_ADDR is primarily used to figure out where the pointer reference goes to this specific invocation. And what was happening was with System Ruby, with the compilation that was applied to bridge support, the pointer to the RB_define method pointed to garbage. And so it was like just some uninitialized memory space, which is why we were getting the seg fault. So why this all of a sudden started happening, there's a couple of reasons. We don't know because we don't have that kind of visibility into Mac OS. One of them was potentially a tighter integration of system integrity protection and how environment variables are communicated across admin boundaries. That was one thing. The other thing was that there's something called closures with an S, not with a J, that is used in some parts of the OS. The use of that has been expanded, and the idea there is that this idea of a closure, it essentially caches some of these dynamically linked libraries, and the caching is generally aggressive. So you might end up in a position where the caching of these DLLs points to a memory space that just isn't there anymore. So they may have expanded the aggressiveness of these closures. So the fix, in essence, for this was passing in an additional compiler flag into the compilation of bridge support itself, such that it would invalidate that cache. So any caches and pointers to system Ruby or any dependencies downstream are just invalidated, and a fresh cache is reloaded. So the patch file, you'll see, starts at line 171, and the patch is very small, but those lines gave me about 20 days of hell. And what you're seeing there as far as figuring out the problem and all the general troubleshooting is what you see with regards to the steps taken. So the final section at 197 is the insight and perspective of open source. This is where I get on my soapbox and say, look, if you're consider yourself a Ruby developer, a senior Ruby developer, it's good that you have experience in the Ruby land, but I generally recommend that you need to go down a layer and understand, the runtime C classes themselves, how form function interfaces are created, and how is Matsumoto even approaching the 3x3 performance, speed enhancements in Ruby. So understanding some of these low-level aspects of Ruby itself, and how the C function interoperability is given there. Bridge support itself has an example of how to do form function interfaces. A lot of the parsing code with regards to parsing or generating the XML and parsing the XML is in very, very fast C code as opposed to being in Ruby. But understanding that and being familiar with those intricacies of the language, I feel is important, especially given the open source nature and the fact that Ruby is not a language that is backed by a very, very large multi-million-dollar organization. So we can't expect the few to bear the weight of the many, especially when a portion of that many are senior developers with at least a decade of experience. Present company excluded. We're all very young and all that stuff. So anyways, that last section is a soapbox. I think it comes down to making sure that I'm not unkind, but still firm and also informative given this information. And of course, that the troubleshooting steps actually work if you don't have any experience with this stuff. So is it clear enough to where, okay, I want to give this a shot and see if I can replicate his troubleshooting steps myself, and I'm sure there's gaps there. So I just need to audit that also. But that was all the above all stuff. Of course, you can see that that Lori has provided some feedback on it. And again, this is a draft, but just trying to be transparent with it and give some context around the tone and what long term I would like to see just in general from obviously people that use RubyMotion to be really good Ruby hackers and mobile hackers, and also use RubyMotion versus the rest of the community that may not appreciate some of the intricacies of this lower level stuff. So take a look. Let me know what you think, and then I'll incorporate that feedback. And when Xcode 10.2 drops, this changelog will go with it. But it's really fun. It's really interesting stuff. Once you get into the intricacies of the lower level C APIs, there's a lot of power there, and it's a good tool to have in your back pocket, especially in those situations where the performance for Ruby, some parts of the, let's say like a code base that's pure Ruby, needs a performance boost. You can create these form function interfaces, become super fast, and still benefit from the productivity of Ruby for everything else, and only have that one small portion being straight C. And this is a demonstration of how that's done and how you debug it if you have issues with it.
What are other resources we can look at to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a book out there called Ruby Under a Microscope.
Okay.
Ruby Under a Microscope. It's a really high 10,000 foot view, but it's still pretty technical, and they kind of glaze over some of the complexities that are really within the virtual machine. But I think it does a good job, like giving you an introduction of what all this stuff is. After reading that book, I would actually just try to compile Ruby from source, and just get used to, can I compile this from source, and do I understand that aspect of it? And after the compilation from source is done, take a look at some of how they, so the file module and the directory, like file, not file utils, but like file dot module in Ruby is actually a form function interface. So it's pure C code. It's powered by pure C code. And so you can look at file.c, which is the backing infrastructure, and just kind of see how did they create the interop layer between the low-level C stuff and Ruby, and how do they expose those bits to use in a higher level language? And that will expose some of these methods like RB-defined function, RB-defined class, RB-defined namespace or module. And yeah, it's interesting stuff. With regards to bridge support, it's just a very small part of bridge support that is actually part of form function interface. And so that is yet another example of how you can leverage some of that stuff.
Yeah, my experience so far has been diving down into it and not really understanding everything I see. So
yeah, I feel your pain. So I think Ruby under a microscope will definitely help with that.
Cool.
So that is a very good starting point, and that's a good point. I'll make a note of that, is to potentially put some additional resources in the changelog, saying like, if you are interested in this stuff, potentially look at this material there, or look at these specific files within like the core Ruby code base, and maybe these blog posts X, Y, and Z to kind of get context around what kind of problems the core team deals with, and is of course understaffed they're always understaffed. Everyone's understaffed with regards to dealing with these kind of problems. So the more people that know how to do this kind of stuff, the better. So that brings us through December. December was pretty quiet, and January has been quiet so far. We'll see what happens after this first week of January is kind of wrapped up, or first half of January is wrapped up. I think fiscal year end with regards to App Store stuff has closed. I forget if it closes in November or January, but they're not in a December close. This is specifically related to distributions of app income. So any distributions of app income are on their, distribution schedule. So I have to look at the calendar to see if they closed a month before or a month after, but it's definitely not in December. So there'll potentially be some new stuff coming out after that. Yep, I think that's everything. I think that's everything. Questions, thoughts on any of this? Is this good information?
It seems like a difficult issue to get people who are used to working on Ruby at a high level to address these things.
Yeah, but and I think yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think that you are taking the right approach generally. I mean, my background is actually I started off doing hardware and embedded C, so some of these things are really familiar to me, but it's such a long time ago that's like I said, it's rusty.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. And another aspect with this like umbrella of sustainable open source, or this term that I keep throwing out there, and I know I've mentioned this before. I know Andy has heard it a billion times, but this idea of sustainable open source goes past just the education aspect of it, but the goal is also for RubyMotion, for subscribers of RubyMotion, to be given a legalese type packet, an accounting type packet that says, hey, legal department, hey, accounting department, you are using, your employee just gave you something that will allow you to have tax benefits associated with your employee working on the clock on anything open source. And here are the open source packages. Here are the licenses for those open source packages that he should have permission to work on. And if he logs time against these specific open source packages, then you can allocate those effort and hours to capitalizable income as opposed to maintenance income. So it's kind of like, it basically defers taxes on potentially any hours that were allocated to those buckets. You don't have to actualize any revenue on those hours until a specific feature that you needed, or until a specific product that leverages that feature that was contributed to actually generates income. So it can actually be like a tax benefit from that standpoint. So making it turnkey, stupid simple to get the suits happy with regards to working on open source on the clock is a component of that sustainability, because it's not fair to say that we got to do all this stuff after hours. We have to be able to do this on the clock. So I think making that dirt simple for a technical person to say, look, they figured it all out for you. You just follow these steps, and I'll make sure to do my due diligence with logging time, as long as you allow me to work on this stuff on the clock, because we have to pay this cost, right? It's not free, and this is the cost associated with it. But because of this cost, we get a huge subsidy with regards to annual subscription and blah 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 blah. So it's in the same stem of educating people. I want to look out for developers from that same perspective, and I think that's the only way we'll be able to quote unquote survive in this new open source world.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yep. So there's that also. But yeah, I think that's all of it. RubyKaigi is only 4 months away, but it's only 4 months away. It'll be around the corner before we know it. I submitted a talk to RubyKaigi around building a game for the Nintendo Redacted. I still can't talk about all the things until Redacted releases at some point in time in the future. But as soon as that happens, I'll be able to speak more about it and how RubyMotion technology was used in this redacted thing. And of course, more so when RubyKaigi comes along.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yep.
Are you going to WWDC, Amir?
I have. Short answer is yes. I just don't know when it is, but yeah, short answer would be.
Nobody knows when it is except Apple.
Yeah. I'm going to. So
you know whether you win, get a ticket in the lottery or not, or are you sort of?
I get to put my name in the lottery just like everyone else.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The only people that get a surefire yes is if they've actually like won an award, like best app of the year or like best design. design Apple app there, they're notified beforehand.
There's a few people that if they go in the lottery, they get a ticket.
Yeah.
A few. And you know, like so-and-so from Omni, I'm pretty sure he's, you know, if he enters...
He just gets a checkbox, yeah.
Yeah.
I am not one of those people.
I have never entered the lottery, so I don't know because...
Yep. So I'm definitely going to GDC, Game Development Conference. So that's happening before RubyKaigi, and then I'm going to go to RubyKaigi in Tokyo, hopefully for a month. And then after, I'm assuming WWDC will potentially be later in the year. So I'll make a second
June, something like that.
Yeah, so I'll make a second trip to LA. GDC's in the California area, so Cupertino and whatnot. So I'll make a second trip to LA around that time.
You're not speaking there, are you?
Not at WWDC. At GDC, no. Yeah, I think I missed the window for GDC. So I'm also I also submitted a talk to that conference. I think it's in middle of nowhere, cheese curds, Wisconsin or something. I love cheese curds, so that in itself is exciting. So hopefully my talk gets accepted there. So there'll be more RubyMotion talk at that conference.
Cool.
So yeah, I think that's really it from that perspective, at least what I can talk about right now.
Sound pretty busy.
It's fun. It's fun stuff.
We should have somewhere, probably on the forum, but just make announcements onto the Slack group as well. But we should have somewhere on the forum where anyone that's talking about RubyMotion anywhere should list their talk. Right?
No, I think that's a good idea. Chris McKnight is actually thinking of starting a local user group around RubyMotion in Tennessee, where he's at currently right now. So I'll make sure that when he starts that up, he'd be the first person that does that. So, but of course, I can't say more than what I'm about to say right now. But RubyKaigi is going to be very interesting with regards to the news that I will be disclosing, and that's going to potentially light a fire with regards to user groups or some interest across the board. So I'm super excited about it, and I wish I could talk about it, but I don't want to talk. I can't talk about it. I want to talk about it, but I can't. So, but when it happens, you're gonna be like, holy crap, this is awesome. I cannot wait. Fingers crossed, hopefully. I think you'll like the news that comes from there. I'm excited about it. I'm just so excited about it, but of course, can't say anything.
Yeah, we should still plan about something for RubyMotion too. So that would get together. I think Portland would be the place to do it, but you know,
this will trend on Twitter. This announcement will trend on Twitter.
Well, good.
All right, heard it here first.
It will trend on Twitter Japan. I am really excited about it. And yeah, I've at least ran it by after many assurances of NDAs and all the secrety stuff was secured. I've ran it by a guy that's close to the core Ruby team, and he was like mind blown. This is a big deal. So April is all I can say. April, yay! So, I'm so excited. It's going to be great. So anyways, bright things to come. Very, 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 very happy stuff. I think that's it. That's really all I got with regards to catching up till January and all the things that happened. And I'm glad things have been quiet for December and January so far, because November was very, 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 very busy with the Mojave drop and the Watch series and all that happened there. But yeah, The storm is gone. The next storm comes next Apple Christmas. So it should be generally quiet for the next 6 months, which is a good thing.
So I think Andrew was still talking about possibly moving when these meetups occur. The other thing is, are we gonna? They're shutting down Hangouts, aren't they? At some point, that's gonna. Are they not?
I know they were shutting down like the G+ social aspect of it. I don't know if everyone's moving to Duo or what's happening from.
So,
from that
but at any rate, we should make sure that maybe we need to do something a little bit more formal to figure out what people are looking at in terms of a time or a day of the week or period in the month that works for people. So if people have preferences, then encourage them to put that up forward, and hopefully this continues, or we'll find something suitable.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything with regards to like deprecation of YouTube Live. Technically, this is YouTube Live as opposed to Hangouts. But wait, yeah, I don't.
I
don't know.
I heard that this was going away, but
I think I've heard the same thing. It's contextual to a judgment with regards to showing copyrighted content during a live stream. So an example would be with regards to YouTube Live, if someone is live streaming a Let's Play video game, depending on how the I guess cases fall with regards to, is this under fair use? Is this who owns the copyright to the video game versus the actual entertainment of playing the video game while it's being played? And if that falls the wrong way, where the YouTube personality that is playing the video game must pay the video game some sort of royalty or license, Google's not going to deal with the overhead required to apply those licenses. And at that point, we're effectively kaput. We just don't.
Well, we'll find something else, right? But
we'll find something else. So till then, we can keep doing this, and we'll roll with those punches when they come.
Well,
maybe
as far
we
as
can build
scheduling,
something. Just kidding. We'll just build our own thing. How hard can that be?
I think we have enough on our plates. As far as scheduling goes, I think I missed one meeting the last couple months just because I forgot. Okay. I don't really have any big.
Well, I've missed the last few months, but it was because I was in a wildly different time zone. So it was.
Right.
I think it was like 5 a.m.
Yeah, it was
so.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, this time actually works quite well. So, and it's once a month, so it's easy enough to block off, a single evening a month.
Yeah.
Sort of idea. So, but which means that, of course, if somebody said, "Oh well, Tuesdays would work better," I'd go, "Sure."
Yeah. And I'm in the same boat. Obviously, it's RubyMotion, games, naps, and playing with puppies. So,
one of the reasons we
pretty much reschedulable.
We switched to this time. I don't even remember how many years ago. Mostly because there's a meetup in Portland for Ruby, just generally on Tuesday nights, the first week of the month. So
gotcha.
I think, as long as there's no conflict there, I don't think it's any issue. I'm
telling you, at the end of April, that Ruby group's going to be like, nah, forget us. Let's. So excited. But yeah, they'll be good.
Okay. Well, talk to you guys next month.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
See ya.